Hello and welcome to this week's look at action and stunts on film and television. How are you? Thanks for joining me once again. You will know if you have listened to this week's podcast, we are looking at Shalako from 1968, starring Sean Connery in this Western. And, it all went reasonably well until the powers that be at Studio Canal, who are the distributors and hold the rights to it, blocked it worldwide. So there are clips you will find on YouTube, but from the United Kingdom we are not permitted to cover this particular film. So I thought, hang on, there's more than one way of skinning a cat, as my mother used to say. And what we're going to do is that there are a number of horse gags in this picture, predominantly through the eyes of the great Ken Buckle, sadly no longer with us, but a fabulous horseman. And I wondered if we might take a look at some horsefalls in general that have appeared on film, and we can then analyse them, because I do get quite a lot of inquiries regarding horse gags and regarding how they do this, and of course the infamous running W. If you're not familiar with that, we will have a look. But effectively what used to happen was that a cable, very fine wire, was attached to the horse's front two legs on leather hobbles, so attached around the front legs. Those cables were then taken to a fixed point in the distance, which could be a tree, a vehicle of some shape or form. The horses would then run to a certain point, the tension would kick in, the horse's legs would then come up because they've got nowhere else to go, and the horse falls over. Now, when you're doing that at speed, it's on film, looks very exciting, but later down the line, in fact a very long time down the line, it was outlawed by the governing body, and the Humane Society no longer allowed to use that. They replaced it with the thing called the toe tapper, which was a manual piece of kit used on the horse by the stunt rider. So instead of it being fixed point over there, it is a physical pull on a rope or a cable, which in this case brings the horse's legs together and the horse falls. That was fine. It was acceptable at that time. You can't do that anymore. That's been changed as well. A lot of horse falls these days will either be on the bridle, and we're going to see some examples of that, where you take the horse, you have the reins, you want the horse to fall to its left, you need to pull the horse's head round to its right as far as it'll go, past the point of no return, where the balance kicks over, and then the horse falls with the rider on board. That's acceptable because the horses can be trained specifically for the purpose of falling. I have discussed this before, I've mentioned it already, but if you see a sequence where you have a horse that jumps a hedge, then comes across a bunch of people who are, let's say, firing weapons, or a big crowd, and then they go through that, and then there is a horse fall at the end of it, the horse is brought down. It may not be the same horse. Chances are it will be three individuals, it will be three horses, because each of them will be trained for separate disciplines, one for noise, one for jumping, one for falling. The fact that they may look slightly different, well, a little makeup and they can look like the horse before and the one before that. So that's where that whole thing comes from. So we're going to have a little look at some of these, analyse it along the way, and we'll regroup on the other side. So let's take a look at some of these. That's Yul Brynner. That means that it's the Magnificent Seven. Watch this saddle fall here. Out of the side, clearing the horse. Nice little vault over as well. Leaving the saddle at speed. Again, L steps. Again, leaving the saddle at speed. That's a risk, but it's got to be done. Here's bringing the horse down the bridle. Look at the horse's head, turning round to one side, and the rider is bringing the horse down. This is controlled. The horses are trained for just this. This is, look at this, straight over the back. That's a somersault jacket. That's what that's called. Davy Wilding, the stuntman in Casino Royale in 1967. This is a bulldog that's used in the picture as well. Stuntman jumps up, only taking the rider. If the horse is to fall over, that is the stuntman's situation. This is a W, running W. The front legs have come up. This is Wyndham the Lion. Stuntman has no control over that horse at all. This is a toe tapper. Watch the right arm. Look, grabs down, pulls up with the right hand, and the horse's legs go down. He goes over the top. He's controlling that. That's the only difference here. Another example here. Watch the left hand. So he pulls down that side. Horse's legs go down and over he goes. So it is controlled. This one, again, bringing the horse down on the bridle. He turns the horse's head around to the right to the point of no return. There is a slope there, an overbalance, and down he goes. It's very important. He does end up underneath the horse, but that's something I've to discuss later. And another fine example of a toe tapper. So this stuntman riding at a pace, riding at speed, his position will change slightly in the saddle as he gets to just outside of the shadow that he's approaching now. He raises himself, he grabs hold down the right hand side and pulls. Watch the horse's front legs. He's pulling now. Look, there's the horse's legs coming up. They can't stretch out, and down he goes and will be pitched forward over the horse's head, clear of the horse. Again, the horse will be trained for this over a period of time. But the W and the toe tapper were, in point of fact, ways of breaking a horse when it was wild back in those early days. Another example of a saddle fall, an L step, falling clear of the horse, right? And this in point of fact is a drag situation, but that's a separate cable there, so that is trained for. Another one here, bang, up, horse goes, turns over to the right-hand side, and down he comes. That's all controlled. And right into lens as well, so that's evidently what the director was looking for. That's a W. Look, that horse has got nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. The horse is just running on. Again, these are outlawed now, so it's not something that's going to happen on a regular basis. You won't see this happen. John Wayne firing away at that Winchester. I assume it's a Winchester. Watch the legs, boom, gone. That's Yakima Canutt. That's one of those stagecoach falls. Horse goes end over end, and the stunt guys go out into the distance. Big pull round on this one. Horse still speeding round, lands right on top of the rider. Did a big 360. Again, saddle falls, falling out of the saddle of the horse, keeping yourself free. Another bridle fall, look, pulling the horse's head all the way round, and down he goes. So again, these horses are trained for that. This one, saddle fall, out of the saddle and into the water. It's not as easy as it looks. Pulling the horse round again, big, up on the back legs, and then it's actually changed position, so it's thrown him clear. Another good example of a saddle fall, falling clear of the horse and landing on the ground. These stunt guys, of course, they're not wearing any padding there. Nice and simple. Drop out of the saddle. The horse is stationary next to you. And then when you've got the Indians chasing the carriage, up he goes, and he's gone right out the front door. And there's a sequence there in the movie in Shalako which has pretty much this sequence apart from it turning over, but it's well worth watching for just that purpose. And Bob Simmons does that in the picture. What, that's Jimmy Stewart. Jimmy Stewart firing all. That's a terrible Jimmy Stewart impression. I apologize for all those Jimmy Stewart fans. But again, another example. Falling clear of the horse. Landing separately. Horse slightly shies away. Goes right, he goes left. I've slowed these down because you do lose something when they're traveling at full clip. This one here, another great example. The turn on the horse's rein is actually whilst the horse is airborne. There is an example of that in the movie. Another good example there. The horse going right over. This one, big explosion in the back, legs come up. Again, that's called a running W. The horse is probably attached to one of those fixtures in the distance there. falling out of the saddle, going out the right side door this time into a shallow water. And again, that's a W. Horse comes down, rearing the horse up, trying to turn the horse. Wow, he's got some height there, and the horse comes down very... Now, this one here, watch, the guy's there, he's falling from the saddle, and then brings the horse down, because he's got the other rein in his hand. The horse lands straight on him. That's unbelievably complicated. Good example. Now, this, I think, is a bulldog. We'll see this. Yes, here he comes. He's going to jump forward over the horse's head. He jumps. Now, he's out of the saddle already, and push and dives, and bang, gets the rider the other side. And then they go down separately. That's a great example. That's a... flipping over the back of it, landing clear. Heavy landing, but landing clear from the horse. So, there you go. Maybe an idea of some of the horse falls in the picture Shalako through the medium of other horse falls from other movies and from generations before. The movie's widely available, right? I'm not disputing that. I'm merely saying that Studio Canal, who own it, they evidently don't have any distribution rights or copyright for the United Kingdom, and consequently, I had a version of it, which I was using little bits and clips and stills from, but they refused point blank. It was blocked in all territories. Now, you can see it. If you're in other countries around the world, you may well be able to see the whole thing there, but that's just the way the licensing works. So, as I say, we get round it, and I hope you will have a better idea of what... these type of horse falls, how difficult they are. Now, when you go and see the movie, should you wish to do so, and I advise doing it. It's a good film, and there's some terrific action sequences in there. Bob Simmons, of course, is the stunt coordinator, does one fall from a stagecoach into a pit. That's worth looking at. Ken Buckle does a majority of the horse falls in this picture, and that's worth looking at as well, in varying costumes. The horses, varying costumes. You dress it slightly differently. You put a blanket over this way or another blanket that way. It hides the saddle below. It also hides the L steps that they're using. These are not full stirrups. They are L-shaped steps. When you get out of the stirrup when you're falling, there's no likelihood of you being able to catch your feet or catch your leg in it and be dragged. If you are to be dragged, that will be arranged separately, but the effort is that you're not going to accidentally fall from the saddle and be dragged to your doom. And also, there are some other nice little bits and pieces there. A couple of fire gags, a couple of special effects shots as well. So really well worth having a look at. If you see it, maybe analyze it slightly differently next time. Maybe Studio Canal further on down the line will change their licensing. Who knows? But we shall see. What are we doing next week? As you will realise, last week I was in Sweden. Beautiful place too, where we had the Light Till Dark Film Festival, and I was very lucky to be asked to go over and host a stunt panel, which was Nila Hansen from Sweden. She lives in Sweden, she's Finnish, but she lives in Sweden, works in Sweden, and the legend that is Paul Weston, and we did that. The footage of that will be made available at some point. Next week on the podcast, there is an interview with Nila, and then a bit later down the line, we also have an interview with the director of the festival itself, Bonita Drake, who also is a bit of a Bond fan. And I found this really exciting because she's a director. She's a director of the festival, but she is a film director in her own right. She's a producer in her own right as well. And what I thought was very interesting was that we kind of split our chat in two bits. We're going to carry on this conversation at a later stage, but the first part was her discussing the festival, and then we talked about Bond. And she's got a great deal of insight because as a director, as a woman, as a director, as a producer, she can kind of change hats and come at subjects from different angles. And it was a really enlightening chat. So if you are a Bond fan, and I urge you to do this, go and check out, I'm not just saying this because we need the listeners, right? I mean, if you want to do that, subscribe anyway. I'm not going to stop you. But next week, particularly, during the course of next week, because I think it comes out during the course of next week, there will be Neela Hansen, and then we've got Benita Drake. And the Benita Drake one, particularly if you're a Bond fan, is well worth a listen because she has some great insight in respect of the Bond movie. She's a huge fan, and you'll find that out as we go along. So there we go for now. As I say, we will be back next week with more of the same. And if you've enjoyed that, subscribe to the channel. I know many have already, but please join them. Come and subscribe to the channel. If you are a social media fan, Facebook, Twitter, I still call it Twitter, I don't care what anybody else calls it, Twitter and Instagram, and also on TikTok. If you are on any of those platforms, you will be able to find Behind the Stunts on Facebook, Behind the Stunts on Instagram, Stunts Central on Twitter, and Behind the Stunts on TikTok as well. There's lots of stuff on the TikTok channel, little shorts and bits and pieces that you may not see on here, so go and check that out. Please subscribe if you would. And with that in mind, we'll do it all again next week, shall we? Stay safe, and until next time, it's bye for now.